Elaine's with us. Turn this volume down here. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you today?
I'm doing good. And man, it is massive. I mean, you're probably just as amazed as everyone else, the amount of equipment and the daunting project that has gone on. Have you ever been involved in something this big before?
Not this big. We've done multiple projects in the past, and they've all been fairly isolated in a particular area. And we've had to move departments before. Big one that did was the ER when we built the new ER, so we had to relocate and kind of squish. But this one's massive, and to get it all organized and keep the hospital running at the same time.
Yeah.
I know it's an impact on traffic. We've had to close Sunset, and that's had to reroute people, and that's an inconvenience. And we're sorry about that, but it is the safest thing for us to do. So yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. Have you? I mean, are people finding their way? I mean, have you had any?
The first couple of weeks was, it's always rough. You're kind of on autopilot when you're going somewhere. Caught myself doing it,
Right, right. Yeah, me too.
You're on autopilot, and oops, I should have turned back there at 4th Street. But we're being very diligent with the calls to patients to remind them of their appointments, also reminding them of the different route. The text messages that go out actually have the map of the reroutes on it.
Oh, that's cool.
And so we're getting all that information out, and when they talk to them, they make sure that we're aware of the different routes. And of course, our biggest concern is to make sure somebody at 3 a.m. gets to the ER.
Right.
And so we've made sure that those are very clear, that when you're coming from the south, you need to turn down at 4th Street,
right,
and then go over and take N up, because getting to Sunset via coming up Geckler just isn't going to get you to the ER in the time frame you would want to when it's 3 a.m.
Right.
So, so far, we had a few bubbles to start with, and feedback from the community. We changed some signs, and it seems to have worked. So we're totally open to more suggestions if they're out there.
Yeah, I noticed that there was one of the signs at the top of Spruce that was a permanent sign. I mean, it was, as you progressed in your signage, just like, I mean, that just made, I think it was an electronic sign at first. Yeah.
And they were. And what we noticed is, especially me coming into work, the sun's hitting them, you couldn't read them.
Oh.
Right. So you couldn't really see them if the sun was on them.
Oh, right.
And just getting those permanent signs made reduces the impact on that neighbor that has that sign outside their house.
Yeah.
And it seems to be clearer to read.
Yeah.
We duplicated the normal construction signs and just got that same message on, so you don't have to wait for pages also.
Right.
It was pages that because those reader boards don't hold much.
Right.
So now it's all on one brief glance, and hopefully that's helping people.
Well, and it also kind of says that, hey, it's going to be this way
a while.
Yeah. So kind of where the electronic signs are a little bit like, hey, temporarily you've got to, and like, no, this is probably going to be a year. So.
Yeah, it's actually 2 years.
Okay. So, well, cool. Well, let's take a look real quick at some of the slides, and here, I'm sorry, let me back us up so that we're at the beginning. I forgot to do this before we got started here. All right. Sorry. These are the things that happen when you have a producer in the other room. Okay.
So yeah, that's what it all looked like before we started.
Yeah.
The landscaping, the helistop in place, the building behind the maple there. Yeah. That's what we used to look like.
And you guys, I mean, I know this because I have a couple of family members. My wife works there. My daughter works there. You allowed the employees to come and take as many pushes as they wanted. Yeah.
The landscaping was beautiful. It was well established. And so we kind of had just an employee free-for-all day, and families came with shovels and buckets, and I think it was about 75 pickup loads of plants, home people, rocks. They were picking up sugar rock down on the road.
Yeah.
And so rather than just dozing that. We
Right.
repurposed all of that. It's now living in other people's homes.
Well, that's awesome.
And it was, the majority of it was gone. Everything. I mean, people were out there digging up trees down to just tiny little flowers, and
Yeah.
everybody had smiles on their face. Even
Yeah.
though
Well,
it rained.
yeah, those are beautiful. I mean, you're right. The vegetation there was beautiful. Well, so then this is, I don't know what that's what, after some of that was cleared off.
Some of that's gone, and we're getting ready to shut Sunset down there. You can see the big equipment coming in. And then this picture is the telestop that was there.
Mhm.
We salvaged all of the material from it, the big part being the deck, which had a glycol heating tube system in it, so that we could keep it free of ice for gurneys and helicopters. We don't want anybody sliding off.
Right.
But this will all be established back on top of the building when we're done. So the new tower that's going in will have the helistop back on top.
Because all of that, the helistop itself was not that old. I mean,
it was 12 years old.
Really?
Yes. Hard to believe, right? It's been there for 12 years.
Holy smokes. Yeah. It just kind of rolls by. Okay. So you had to reroute foot traffic.
We did. So there's a lot of traffic that goes on. I think we did a head count one day, about 300 trips. And that was a couple of years ago. So it's probably even more between our clinics to the south, the regional medical plaza, the dermatology, neurology, the sports rehab. All of those folks come to the hospital either for business purposes. Doctors are coming to deliver babies, surgeons to see their cases, and then lab runs. And so the foot that was there directly in the path of the building, so it had to be rerouted. So we've built what we call the boardwalk.
Okay.
And it started out as a simple trail, and then we went, we have enough. Let's put a lid on it. So we did. The guys put a lid on it because we know it's going to be for a while. It's a duration until that new foundation hallway is built. Where the old sidewalk is will actually be way in the interior of the new tower.
Oh.
And so there will be very short that they'll walk outside from that other building.
Once they get done.
And you can see there we're getting ready to start with the utilities. The building on the right is still there. It's now gone, but that's getting prep work. All of the utilities for the hospital got touched. We had to move water. We're in the process right now of moving sewer, all of the cable, all of our telephone, our natural gas. I mean, if it was used to run the hospital, it had to be moved. And so that was a lot of the prep work that you've seen for the last couple of months before we started even building the building, was getting all of the utilities out of the way because they came up the hill right in that path.
Wow.
And there you can see they're just finishing taking down that building to the left. That you can see a little bit of the building. We're also that canopy where you can see the room is up. We had to relocate some of the air conditioning to the server room from that canopy up onto the main room for server room for computers.
Wow.
And so that's what they're doing, is lifting that up.
Okay. This is actually demolition of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's always the fun part. Everybody wanted to go tobacco to finish the building. And that building was originally built as a doctor's office next to the original hospital. It was a private doctors had built that just so they'd be right next to the hospital. And then eventually we bought it, and it was a business office for many decades, and then turned into administrative offices. But yeah, it was, like I say, everybody was fighting to who gets to run the Traco to finish it.
Yeah. And then is this utilities? That
is our new electrical feed. It used to come up the hillside, and now we've rerouted it. OTEC was actually in the process of doing a project to take down some poles on Sunset. So we just married our project with theirs. Poles came down, and the new power feed coming up from the south in the middle of the campus. Hopefully never have to be touched again.
Yeah.
But it was a huge project. Each of those conduits, each has huge feeders for the electrical power coming in to run the existing hospitals. We actually had to do a shutdown of the hospital, normal power, one night at midnight.
Right.
Everybody's in bed. So we turned off, went to generators, and switched over to this new power. So we are now on that new power line.
Wow. So now that
shows where that building is no longer there, and pretty much shows, you can see where the power is at the Sunset is where the new building will be.
Okay.
It will touch right up against that existing wing, and then we'll do a couple of breaches where we'll put doorways into that from the new tower.
Okay.
And those are what is called soldier piles.
Soldier piles.
Soldier piles. Yes.
Okay.
They are 65 feet deep, 3 feet around. Then we had a large boring drill here, and they were all dug down till they got basically to solid rock. Because I think anybody, if you look at the hill, you can tell it's a slough. And so these went down into solid rock. Did a 65-foot hole, put that steel beam in, and then poured it in concrete. And those steel beams actually have a thermal rod in them, so you can do a thermal image to make sure that the concrete settled right, no bubbles, that it's curing correctly.
Oh, interesting.
So those go down, and they're going to be what holds that tower on the hill.
Wow.
So we're pretty proud of them. They're essential.
No, and I watched as they were. I mean, that was massive.
It was, and you could tell when they'd hit a rock because it'd be like a changed tone, and it would just kind of drop and drill, and it hit water a couple times.
Yeah.
You know, just so it was quite the adventure. They didn't hit any utilities, so we were glad about that.
Yeah.
We were able those moved, but it was several weeks of drilling. I think there were 39 soldier piles that went in.
Wow. Now this is the upper project, right? That's
yes.
the beginning. Yeah.
And so part of what we have to do as a hospital, we always have the ability to function for 96 hours with no input from the outside, water, power, things like that.
Okay.
So our old generator diesel tank was actually in the yard of the building that was torn down.
Okay.
And so we also needed to add a new generator for the new tower. So this project here is moving. We will have a new generator, and we'll have a new tank that has a bigger capacity than our old ground buried, and these will both be above ground. So they're basically excavating into the hill behind the hospital. That green, we refer to it as the doghouse, that is actually the exhaust for the generator that is in the ER.
Oh.
And so, but behind that will be the new generator and the new diesel tank to run us in emergencies.
Oh, interesting.
So that's what they're constructing back there, is putting that into the hillside. There you can see how it's just a big retaining wall to help hold that hill back.
Right.
And build the pad to put in the generator and the diesel tank.
Wow.
Unfortunately for us, the supply chain has got our diesel tank somewhere en route. So we hope to have it by now, but we're looking, it's probably a couple of months. We're not quite sure where the delivery date is at. So we have some contingencies put in place. We can still run the 96 hours as required. We've got internal tanks on our diesel generators, and we have a little basically belly tank that we have for reserves, and then a local company is ready to fill us up daily if need be.
Wow.
So that we can still maintain that 96 hours.
Wow, that's impressive. I think this is
it's more, soldier piles going across the front. They will be kind of at the edge. So our building has 5 levels, the bottom 2 being not full. They will just be on the toe of the hill from Sunset up, and then the other 3 would go up from there. And so those will be on the edge of the 3 that are full build out all the way straight up.
Right.
Yep.
Well, very cool. And I think that was the last harsh slide. And that, it took me a little bit to figure that out, that they're not 5 full floors. Right. And that's why you're not excavating all of the hill.
Hole. Right. We don't have to have the big hole. And the reason we had to do enough excavating to do this, we needed the soldier piles in regardless. Mm-hmm. So we've always had issues with trucks trying to get up Sunset. They've come up and had to go up our main drive that's shared with patients and ambulances to unload our supplies. And now the Sunsets, we're building a loading dock off of, they'll just pull off of Sunset and do deliveries down there and not have to come into the patient flow of traffic. So those trucks will just unload and then just continue on down Sunset. It'll also be all of our courier traffic will be out of there. We get all of our materials in to the hospital. And we distribute them to our clinics.
Right.
So all of that traffic will come out of that base floor down there. Our materials department will be right above it. Again, kind of one of those half floors. So it'll really increase our efficiency to serve our customers, which are our clinics in the area, and keep, again, that heavy traffic out of the patient flow.
I can't imagine what a relief that was for you as those plans were developing to
Yeah,
realize that your loading dock was going to be somewhere else.
yeah.
And
Because the original loading dock, they had to go under the east wing,
right,
and half the trucks don't fit because trucks are bigger now than when it was originally built.
right.
They don't fit, or we have a miraculous device that we devised that with trucks backing up would hit and it would clatter to the ground so they wouldn't hit the building, because they used to hit the building all the time because they, oh, I'll fit,
Yeah.
it's 2 inches, I'll be all right. We had trucks get under there, unload, and then be too high once they unloaded. So
Oh,
we have
because
to let air
it's
out,
suspension,
air out of
right?
tires
Yeah,
and pull them out. So yeah, to have that traffic not impeding both patient and even staff, you'd get parked there and the truck's back. Well, you wait till it's unloaded before you'd leave.
yeah.
Yeah, so all of that will be down in more of a utilitarian area, not have to, no patients will be crossing with that. So that'll be great.
So kind of what's the next? So now they have the, what'd you call those
Soldier piles, yes.
soldier piles in. Kind of what's the next major development that's happening?
So what they're
at the
doing
construction?
right now is each of those soldier piles has what they call a tieback. So they are drilling vertically back into the hill, 120 to 130 feet, and those are kind of guy ties back in
Yeah,
to
we
keep them
used to
from leaning forward.
I used to build retaining walls
Yeah,
landscaping, and
that's exactly
it
what.
was a
Yeah,
dead man. Yeah,
yeah.
that's what we call it. Yeah.
So each one has 3. So they're
Okay.
drilling those right
Wow.
now, and they just go back into the hillside. Once those are done, then we'll start working on the foundations.
Wow.
So you'll start seeing all the utilities have been moved. The base shoring is done, so there'll be now just foundation. You'll start seeing that.
Right. Well, and I was peering over the edge, and so all of the utilities from the street there are coming up that. Is there a utility corridor, or is that, or they're already there?
We've got the utility corridor coming up and around the RMP building. Excuse me, the RMP building. Our natural gas right now is coming up and over the east wing. You can actually see the black pipe that's just mounted surface right now.
Yeah.
Eventually, that will come through the new building, and our water. We have actually put in a new line coming from. There's an 8-inch city line that goes behind the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, that's where our water is coming from now, and then we'll reestablish the one that came from Sunset. So we'll actually have dual feed. One dies, we'll have water.
Yeah.
So that'll be an improvement in the future. But those will all be hooked into the new building once it starts getting established.
So how did you prepare? I mean, this is a massive job. I mean, you already had a massive job.
I did. I had a job. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and then this construction.
It's actually been really fun because I have always provided an environment for our staff and patients. Make sure the building's warm, make sure the water's running,
Right.
and that's been our goal is to do that. So you didn't see us. Everything
Right.
was good.
Right.
You didn't have to call
We've
us,
talked
right?
about that. Yeah, it's like the sound man. It's
Yeah.
like if nobody notices him, then you did a
You
good
did
job.
a good job.
Yeah.
And so when this project picked up, our goal was to get from the users, what do you need? So we did a lot of site visits to working hospitals. We asked them, what did you like? What did you not like? And we took all that back to the architects. And we also got our construction team on board, Boughton. So we started interviewing staff. We're like, okay, if you had your perfect world, what would you want?
Mm-hmm.
And so we broke it down into need to haves, want to haves. God, that'd be wonderfuls. We've incorporated all of gotta have, almost all the need to haves, and some of the, boy, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Into this building. So when it's done, they will have designed it. We just built it.
Mm-hmm.
And so our staff that are going to work in it are the designers. We've just built around their needs. And so it should have a very functional building that everybody is bought off on the whole entire design process. And it's been about 8 months of these conversations. I have been doing probably 4 to 6 hours a day in meetings with folks to say, okay, what do you need? And then sometimes we'd have to back them up and say, well, code says you can't really do that, so here's an alternate.
Right.
And we'd work that in. And so work through that process to make sure the building meets code, meets all the federal and state requirements, but still is functional for staff. And that was our main goal, is to have a functioning new OR suite that allows the patients to come in, allows them that privacy, no more wheeling down the public corridor, get your surgery. It allows us to, our surgeons are so excited because now they're getting state-of-the-art size of rooms, the equipment that can be accommodated, and not have to be shuffling things around like they do now. So they can provide that care that La Grande is really proud to do, for our patients in town.
Well, and I'm sure that from you and I have talked about it just a little bit before, how important it is when you're trying to provide a space, in your particular case, or a building or a facility for extreme professional surgeons.
Yes.
I mean, who their work is really critical. How satisfying it is to be able to hear from them directly and to be able to kind of match the pieces together.
Yes, it's been, I know more now about what a surgeon does in his day than I ever would have dreamed of, and what a person that works in central sterile does.
Right.
It's been really enlightening for me, and it's going to allow me in the long run to do a better job because I really understand their jobs better.
Right.
Because we really delved into, okay, what do you do? What's your processes? And they've got so many things that they do to strive to come out, like Central Sterile, to come out with sterile instruments that the surgeons use. And how do they use them? And what process do they get them from being dirty to clean?
Right.
And so that whole process, I can now support them even so much better just day to day after we're done, because I know their job's so much better. And that's been fun. I really enjoyed that.
Well, and people, I'm mechanical. I know you are too. Yeah. And you just think differently.
We do.
You think more practically in some way or another, and so I'm sure that somewhere along the line, as people have told the processes of what they do, you said, well, wouldn't it be easier to just go this to this? And then, yes, I mean,
there has been some of that there.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of it has come from the spaces they're working in are so tight that they've just got it done. They've not thought about they're so pressed to get it done in that little cramped space. When we've had CPS for one day, we have their space laid out, and she goes, well, I just do this back and forth. And I went, that's 20 feet. She goes, no way. Because their space is so cramped now, they just couldn't get the concept that from that table to that table was now going to be 20 feet. Well, we need to change that process, because you don't want to walk back and forth 50 times, 20 feet in a day if you can do it in 2 feet.
Right.
So we did. We were able to change their process to make it easier on their bodies and to make them more efficient.
Right.
And that's been fun to watch the enlightenment and come to them, because we built mock-ups, because a lot of folks can't look at drawings on the
you got to see it. It's like, that's 10 feet.
Oh, that's 10 feet is that. Oh my gosh,
Right.
So that's been a learning curve on our part, is how do we convey that? Like we did it with mock-ups, we did it with a lot of spatial things. So they really got the concept of, I've got all this elbow room. That's going to allow me to do this, where I couldn't before. And so they're all excited, and we're excited for them.
Wow. Well, that's cool. How did you, I guess where I was getting to is, are there times when you feel like this is over my head, I'm overwhelmed? I mean,
not really, because I have experts to tap.
Right. Okay.
Our architects, they only do healthcare.
Yeah.
So we've tapped on, well, what did you do at other places? And so even beyond the facilities that we visited, we've got the healthcare, and our construction team does healthcare.
Yeah.
So they also have come up with ideas that we just did a huge, we got the design done. And so we just did a huge going through it. We call it value engineering. And we went through and we looked at things that we had come up with, from the design team to the architectural to the construction team. And we VE'd out, value engineered about $5 million. And it was very simple things. There was going to be a wall of glass. Well, that wall of glass, because of where it was located, had to be fire rated. we talked to the fire marshal and said, what if we just ran the sprinklers close to it? And if it was on, the building was on fire, if the water hit the glass, would that count? Oh yeah, that'll work. Well, boom, now we don't have to have fire rated glass. We just have the sprinkler system taking care of that.
Right.
That was hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And so we looked at every component that we put in there, and is there ways to not sacrifice anything on the building, both function and looks, but do it more economically.
Right.
And so that's what we've done.
Wow.
We went through but we've not sacrificed function. We've not, from my heart as a facilities person, we've not sacrificed how do I maintain it later.
Right.
Because you can build something really nice, but it's hard to maintain. That just hurts you in the long run.
Right.
So we didn't sacrifice any of that, but we were able to, just by talking it through, be able to curb some expenses, which is always good.
Right. Wow. That's awesome. My son-in-law is a project engineer in Portland.
Okay.
And he was working for PSU at the time, and they were building a big building in the middle of COVID. And
always a challenge.
Yeah, and since most of them were remote as they're doing this thing, they missed that
hands-on
ability to be collaborative, to overhear, oh, that light fixture is going to be in the way of the projector that's going to go. And so
no, it is. It's all real.
Yeah. And so that's really cool that you can work with that.
That is one of the reasons we didn't design it and then bring on the contractor.
Yeah.
We've had the contractor at the table because he says things like that. Guys, if you put that beam there, your airflow can't go through this way.
Right.
Oh yeah, okay. Because a lot of your architects, if you don't have that hands-on as much,
right,
it makes a difference. And so it's been a very collaborative. And there's actually software down now that just meshes it all together. But it's wild to see on screen. But you can say, oh, that's going to bump into this. So let's do this first and then put in that piece.
Wow.
And that'll allow the sequencing of the trades when they come in, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, is all based on a already thought out plan. So they're not, the guy doesn't put up the sheetrock and then the electrician shows up.
Right.
We're not going to do that. We're building it smart so that each contractor gets in there, is able to have his space, gets his stuff done correctly. And that's why you see all the activity on the hill, because we thought out, okay, we've got a big trackhoe here. What things can he do? Oh, he can build the thing on the hill. He can also get ready for the soldier piles. He can build the pad for this, So we're doing multiple things with that piece of equipment instead of bringing it back 3 different times.
Right.
And again, bringing what we call lean management and lean construction also helps the bottom line.
Yeah. Cool. And you had to build a road.
We did. Where all those plants were at, there's now a road.
Right. Yeah.
Who would have thought you could put a road in?
Yeah, to get all that equipment up there.
Yep. And we're so grateful to the city for giving us Sunset, because that's had a huge impact on the project, to be able to not worry about trying to get traffic past there, keep people safe, and allowing us that space to move that kind of equipment around, because we've got the heavy lifter is still coming. We've got the huge crane that'll be here in a month to start lifting. But
wow, it's
pretty massive equipment that's there right now.
So then you're hoping to have the foundation poured, all of that's going to happen soon.
Yes. Yeah. The goal is to hopefully winter will be polite to us, and we'll get it all in, and then right now the schedule is to have the roof on by spring.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So then we can start working on the inside.
Right. And I think Jeremy told me that when the building does come in, it's kind of coming in chunks.
It is. It's kind of like Lincoln Logs or Legos. There's going to be the steel is what they call Connectex, and it will shorten the erection time by months.
Wow.
It'll go up in a couple of weeks because it's all prefabbed, and they just bring it in and start putting it together.
Wow.
So it's going to be fascinating to watch. We do have a camera on it, so we'll have a great time lapse when we're done.
Right.
To watch everything from the construction to the resurrection of the new building. It's going to be fun.
Well, very cool. Well, Elaine, thanks for coming today.
You're welcome.
And it's always, you and I have a lot in common, and so it's easy for us to talk, and I appreciate the job that you do. I know that before all of this construction, you have managed all of these professionals and their spacing and moving this person here so that you can do this, you know, I mean,
Yeah, we do. We
I
move a lot of folks, but
yeah, I know there's a
yeah,
ton of juggling.
there is.
Yeah, one of the surgeons playing Tetris. Yeah, that's what, you know, I mean, he described it the best. Yeah,
Yep,
and I know that you do a lot of that with facilities and stuff.
we do. And our goal is always that patient is first,
Right,
and how do we make things function in the background?
right.
And sometimes we get pretty creative, but I'm really blessed to have a team that they've got, they do some wonderful things. So we get it done.
Good. All righty. Well, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you.
We'll be right back right after this.